Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Kelly Mesher-Collins with the Diocese of Des Moines. On today's show, we're visiting with Archbishop Joseph Naumann of the Archdiocese of Kansas City, Kansas. We'll talk to him about his vocation call, pro-life activities, and the people he serves. But first, let's find out what's on the Bishop's mind.
Well, this show is airing on Friday the 13th. Of course, as Catholic Christians, we're not superstitious or anything. You know, we look for God's grace on every day and not numbers and things. Bishops of the Mink region, Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, are concluding their retreat today, but we're privileged to have Archbishop Naumann. We are not broadcasting from the Abbey this morning, but just as the people of our diocese, just as we'll continue to announce good news to them and maybe share with them the fruits of some of our strategic visioning process that we want to implement, but a mission statement that really kind of speaking to the way in which God rouses us to become witnesses of true love as the Spirit wills for us to bear God's presence, healing, compassion, and peace to a broken world. Here we are in ordinary time, but we continue to bear the joy of the Christmas season, the joy of the gospel, so that we can turn fear to holy boldness, as our Holy Father speaks so many times, and speak those anointed words to persons who maybe it's not just the brutal Midwestern winter, but our culture, they maybe become a little lukewarm in their faith. They find it hard to believe they're beautiful and beloved in God's sight. So we want to build up each other and overcome division, because living by faith is the greatest adventure imaginable in a God for whom all things are possible. So we continue in this region not only to sow seeds in the January, where the farmers, as poets will say, you know, dreaming of going into the furrow again and again, but we're sowing God's Spirit as a mission and labor that never grows old. So we're grateful. We're going to bring in here already Archbishop Naumann, because someone I've been privileged to come to know through the Region 9 visit on Limita to the Holy Father a few years ago, shortly before the pandemic. Various times we gather on retreat, and his leading the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre, which I was invested in September. So chances to kind of sit at his feet, but also to learn from him as a senior bishop and a wise man, and obviously a very ardent apostle of life in his various roles that he had. So thank you, Archbishop, for making time for us today.
Thanks for the opportunity to visit with you and your listeners. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, and we carry over the Missouri River here, just not only in your region, but here in Nebraska with the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. And
we're in Chiefs Kingdom.
We're in Chiefs Kingdom, okay.
Good.
It is amazing how much Chiefs paraphernalia is being worn up around here, particularly as on the college level. The Cyclones kind of had a rough year.
My brother-in-law's in Omaha. I know he's a big fan, too.
So who knows how it'll be playing out by the time the show is aired as well. But and then even the connections of the Omaha area with your high school classmate, Archbishop Lucas. That's something I've come to learn, Archbishop.
Yeah, we started high school together a long, long time ago, and been good friends ever since. And yeah, he's a great bishop, and I admire him a lot.
Yeah, and so both of you knew at a relatively early age that priesthood was the path God was calling you to, because it was a high school seminary, was it not?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I knew at that age, but I was open to it. I was interested in the possibility of priesthood, and my father was murdered when my mother was pregnant with me, and I have a brother that's 2 years older. But I think because of that, the priests in our parish really took an interest in my brother and me, and we just had priests as friends, and I saw the difference they were making in people's lives. So it was natural thing to think about. But I wasn't sure when I entered high school, but about midway through college is when I really felt that's what God was calling me to, and we had 6 more years to see if the church agreed with that, which I'm glad they did. Now
you're at the other side of it, discerning whether men have a vocation or not, and affirming the promptings of the Holy Spirit. That's something I did not know, that tragic side with your loss of your father as well. And do you feel like you came to know your father through your mother's stories or your relatives or things, or is that something that, the father of fathers had to? Okay, we're going to take a little pause. I realize we're already kind of well into it, but we're going to pause here and come back. So Archbishop Naumann, thank you for hanging with us.
We're going to take a quick break.
Sure.
At Intervisions Healthcare, we see patients with unplanned pregnancies from ages 12 to 43. An unplanned pregnancy is traumatic at any age. For that reason, we specialize in educating, encouraging, and empowering vulnerable and at-risk mothers facing an unexpected pregnancy with the medical information and services necessary for them to make an informed decision. For more information on the free medical services at Intervisions Healthcare or to support our mission or become a volunteer, visit ivhcare.org.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from CTO. Your contribution to CTO helps families send their children to our Catholic schools who otherwise could not afford it. In giving to CTO, you receive the best tax credits ever. Pledge or donate online at ctoiowa.org. ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. We are back with Archbishop Joseph Naumann of the Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas.
Okay, and before we add the break, intrude, just, the story of your father and, the preciousness of human life. And growing up in St. Louis, the parish was its own kind of support, its own family? Or, how did you kind of meet that absence of your father?
Yeah, it was... My mother was a great woman of faith, and of course, I was immune to what was going on because I was in utero at the time. But as I got older, I would ask our relatives and some of my mother and father's friends, what that was like. And many of them told me that my mother's faith at that time really was inspiring to them. And though she was grieving my father's death, and especially the way that he died, was just a week before Christmas that year, and she still had hope. She still had a joy about her, and believed that even though she didn't think God willed my father to die the way he did, she still believed that God could bring good out of this, and so she became a Catholic school teacher and at our parish school, and then eventually principal of that school. And when I was an auxiliary bishop in St. Louis, I'd go around doing confirmations, and inevitably parents would come up to me, or sponsors sometime, and they didn't care that I was a bishop. They just wanted to talk to me because I was Mrs. Naumann's son.
I love it.
And
I love it.
wanted to tell me how she had affected their lives. So it was, and as I said, I think as a result of that, I had a number of father figures in my life that, and one thing, my mother made sure that my brother and I, my father played professional baseball, and so she made sure we were baseball fans, and he played in the Cardinals system, so we were big Cardinals fans.
Well, I mean,
it became a little bit of a challenge when I moved to Kansas City.
I was just going to say there, but you had a variety of roles in the St. Louis Archdiocese, but involved in various ways. What were some of the positions that maybe, did you inherit some of your mother's educational vocation in communicating and forming people?
Yeah, I was never a teacher in high school, although a number of my classmates were, but it was a different era. I was an associate for 14 years in 3 different parishes, and they always ask you, being ordained, what we would like to do, and my desire was to serve in the inner city and an African American community, but my first assignment wasn't there. The bishop at that time, who ordained me, Cardinal Carberry, he believed it was really important for newly ordained to have a rich experience of the sacramental life. And sometimes the opportunity for that isn't always as much there in inner city parishes. So I was in 2 parishes that were kind of vibrant. One was a suburban, one was a city parish. But in my 3rd assignment, I got the answer to my request and to serve in a predominantly African-American community But at that same time, the bishop at that time, Archbishop May, asked me to be what was called the priest coordinator of the Archdiocesan Pro-Life Committee. So that was in 1984, and it got me involved with the Church's pro-life apostolate, which has been important to me throughout my priesthood and now my ministry as bishop as well.
Wow, and so, that 20 years then prior to being named coadjutor Archbishop of Kansas City, succeeding Archbishop Kelleher, then eventually in 2005, January 15th, so 2 days away from your anniversary as Archbishop. Congratulations on that. But you mentioned not only switch, maybe you weren't want to switch your athletic allegiance, but was there any other facets, that each archdiocese has its own kind of culture, the local church there? Were there things that in that transition that stretched you in your ministry early on beyond how it's kind of unfolded since then?
Yeah, I tell people here, you can be a Royals and a Cardinals fan. It's only a problem during interleague play.
The I-70 series.
And God willing, someday we have an I-70 World Series again here. But the two communities are very similar, although Kansas City would perceive itself more as a Western city, and people look at St. Louis sometimes as the last Eastern city. But there's a lot of families. In fact, I have a nephew and his wife they live on the Missouri side in Lee Summit, but close by. And so there's a lot of the same families in both communities. But one of the things that I really enjoy about the Kansas City community is I describe them as entrepreneurial in their faith. That they don't waste a lot of time complaining about things, but they look for solutions, and I think that's just kind of the makeup of people here in general, and so it's a great community, one that's very much home for me now, and I like being part of the Chiefs Kingdom.
Another nod for Kelly here.
That's correct.
Yeah, so so innovative, kind of that pioneer spirit remains among the people, and again, not carrying so much baggage of things that haven't maybe been successful or have brought kind of heaviness of the past. Your Episcopal motto, Vitae Victoria Erit, life will be victorious. That kind of seems to capture so much of how I've come to know you and the profile that you've had among the American episcopacy, your passion for defending the dignity of all life. But that just didn't kick in. As you said, you were overseeing human life and those affairs in St. Louis. How has that been animated over the years and only grown and been expressed then in your episcopacy?
Yeah, the motto is a phrase from John Paul's writing, which most often that motto is taken from a biblical verse. But I chose it, yes, because of my long involvement with the pro-life apostolate, but also that I hope my ministry would be a ministry of hope, and that it has an application in terms of the struggle for creating a culture of life in our own time. But also, I've seen that motto that Jesus has already won the victory of life, and we're privileged to be part of its unfolding in our time and place. But yeah, the getting involved with the pro-life movement, I was a relatively young priest at the time, and being a leadership position, I got to know some of the incredible people in the pro-life movement who I think are some of the most generous and loving people. They spend so much time and energy trying to protect those that will never know them and never be able to say thanks to them. And it was really a blessing for me that I was doing this at the same time I was serving in the inner city, because sometimes those that work for the justice issues and sometimes we can, because of the politics in our country, have a division or a competition sometimes. But it was really good to be in both of those areas of the church's work simultaneously, and because they're very much connected. It's all about upholding the dignity of the human person, and so I was
and really the kind of quintessential social justice advocacy, really, and everything else connected with that in a way, in a very holistic way, and your experience verifies that. So appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all part of the church's teaching on the sanctity of life and the dignity of the human person. So, it was a great privilege to do that. The church's effort in that area is four-pronged. That everything has to be founded on prayer. Then education is a key part of that, and a lot of that education happens person to person, not so much in giving talks, but in conversations that we have with coworkers and family members and friends. Then the pastoral component, so the alternatives to abortion, and trying to surround any woman that's in a difficult pregnancy with support and love, as well as our ministry to those who seek healing after an abortion. And then the final part, which is what people oftentimes think most of, is advocacy. And of course, we do have to try to have our laws protective of the unborn. And I think it's important if we. President Biden often says, he's fighting for the soul of America. And that's one thing I agree. I think there's a battle for the soul of America. I just have a very different view of what we're battling over than he does, I think. And part of that, an important part of that, is this renewed respect for the sanctity of each and every human life. And it's at the core of our Catholic faith, because we believe that Jesus Christ gave his life on Calvary for every human life, every human person. And so there's no throwaway individuals. That's one of the terms Pope Francis uses a lot, that we've become a throwaway culture. And part of our mission, I think, as Catholics, is to say, no, there are no throwaway lives. Every life is important and is made in the image of God, and of such worth that a God would die for them on Calvary.
Amen. Amen. You alluded a moment ago about the people you've been privileged to work with in the pro-life movement. I think sometimes the culture kind of caricatures people, who are pro-life defenders as being very strident, maybe angry or in any way. But no, there's such a joyful witness, and I think you are a perfect match in terms of being a gentle shepherd who radiates the humility of Christ and the solicitude that he has for so many people. Did you find yourself being kind of a lightning rod in your tenure as chair of the UCCB Committee on Pro-Life Activities for the culture wars and things, that people were kind of trashing you very easily and trying to impute to you things that were just not part and parcel of who you are?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and it's actually gotten worse in the last year, I think, with the Dobbs decision. And it used to be that those who support legalized abortion talked about choice, but now they talk about abortion as medical care and as a fundamental right. And this is really tragic for our culture and society. And, the media has a lot to do with this. And, I think any human rights movement, it draws a lot of different people to it. So there are some people in the pro-life movement that, I don't think serve us well. But the vast majority that are in the pro-life movement are these people of great love and compassion. And they're involved in all sorts of ways of serving others, not just working to care for mothers that are pregnant and saving the lives of the unborn. It's part of the culture war, and it's gotten more strident from those that support legalized abortion. I was just recently with some of our seminarians, and we were praying in front of abortion clinic, and the vulgarity of the other side, and they were trying to provoke a confrontation, and we just remained prayerful and gave our witness. But yeah, there is a real battle going on within our society and culture today, and it's all over the dignity of the human person and how we see the human person.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the Dobbs decision, long prayed for and awaited, but the work only, I think, really commences again with a new chapter of everything else. You were part of the Walking with Moms in Need initiative as one of the achievements of your time as tenure. That continues, doesn't it? Well beyond, and just for some maybe who aren't aware of what that involves, because oftentimes, they're taking their talking points from Planned Parenthood. They think, the church is only interested about unborn life, preborn life, never, after the womb.
Yeah, that's so untrue. And when we started Walking with Moms in Need, our committee actually thought there was a possibility that Roe would be overturned. But we also, our main reason was this is what the church, this is what we're called to do, and just to ramp up our efforts. And so we asked every parish in the country to do a study of what resources are available in their community for those that would come, those that are in the midst of a difficult pregnancy. And I'm going to keep Jimmy happy with me in the studio here, Archbishop. Yeah. We're going to pause here again. Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by the Sarah Vocations Ministry, including the St. Sarah Club of Des Moines and the Sarah Club of Council Bluffs. Sarah is an apostolate of the Worldwide Catholic Church dedicated to fostering and supporting priesthood and religious vocations. Sarahans strive to accomplish their mission through prayer, fellowship, and service to the bishop, priests, sisters, and all in religious formation, and in doing so to increase their own holiness. Learn more at joinsarah.org, joinserra.org. Thank you, Sarahans, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences, where you can chart your course for more.
Mercy College provides unparalleled clinical rotations, hands-on learning, accelerated education, and flexible schedules. Since 1899, Mercy College has been transforming students into healthcare professionals. Guided by Catholic values, our faculty put classroom theory into practice. Students are prepared for roles in service and leadership throughout their own careers.
Learn more at mchs.edu. Mercy College of Health Sciences, mchs.edu.
Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. We are back with Archbishop Naumann of the Archdiocese of Kansas City, Kansas.
And a fascinating life story here on Making It Personal. But the personal engagement with women, accompanying them, as Pope Francis calls us to do as a church with each other, but in particular those who might be vulnerable, the Walking with Moms in Needs initiative. And before the break, we asked you to pause, Archbishop, but if you can continue to in that vein.
Yeah, so we were just asking parishes, our parishes aren't going to be crisis pregnancy centers, but they should know anyone that's in a difficult pregnancy or knows someone that's in a difficult pregnancy. Our parishes should be able to connect them with the resources, and there are so many resources out there. But we were also hoping to look at where are the gaps in those resources. Like one of the things we saw here in the Kansas City area was that we needed more residential care for women that were in a difficult pregnancy and, perhaps were kicked out of their home, abandoned by the father of the child. And so we've been able to open up, it's actually on the Missouri side, but a new residence for women with a difficult pregnancy. But that's what Walking with Moms in Needs is, just to ramp up our care for women. And, women are the second victims of the abortion, the mothers are. And it's such a terrible burden that so many carry. And I'm sure in your priestly ministry, the greatest grief, I think, that people can go through is the loss of a child. But when you layer on top of that I chose the death of my child, that's a tremendous burden. But God, with God's grace, it can be lifted and it can be healed, and there's so many beautiful things that happen in our post-abortion ministry. So all of that.
From my time as a younger priest, as a Rachel's Project priest, and there weren't, scores of women I worked with, but yes, that message of healing, that message of hope, and that, God is not looking at us through a lens of one particular choice we may have made at a time of stress and crisis. It was there. So, thank so much for the work that you continue to do in that area, and continuing to be a shepherd, and collaborating with Bishop Johnston. It didn't take a concordat to make that happen, I suspect, because you're both ardent apostles. How other fronts, evangelization. We've got about 2 minutes left, Archbishop. Evangelization, it's something that near and dear to all our hearts. How is that happening in Kansas City?
Yeah, our mission statement is growing as disciples of Jesus and making disciples for Jesus. And I think the way we transform the culture today is by radiating the joy of the gospel. And, what we believe as Christians and as Catholics, no other world religion believes, is God that immersed himself in our humanity and pursues us and seeks us out. And if we understand that, how can we fail to try and share it with others? But our evangelization, I think, is really what happens when people see within Catholics this joy of knowing this God who's loved them into existence and desires to have this friendship with us. So yeah, there's some beautiful things that we're doing, I think, are happening here. And one of them involves trying to support marriages more, but in our parishes, actually trying to offer to the non-Catholics that are in the community help in growing in virtuous love and friendships and in married love as well. So maybe that'll be a topic for another show sometime.
Indeed, always winding down. And I know, young Catholic professionals here in the Des Moines area look to Kansas City as a kind of model for the outreach and the forming a community unto itself with our young adults. So, commend you on that, too, as another initiative that brings the gospel, because these are going to be the apostles of the next generation. They are right now, in the witness that they give. So thank you for all you did and for spending time with us. And we pray that the retreat has been a blessed time for you, Archbishop.
Yeah, thanks for organizing it, and thanks for being a great bishop.
Very kind.
This has been another edition of Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.